sponsors for tonight. Ohio Mutual is our event sponsor. They stepped up right away in support of the fund to raise money for Parkinson's research, as well as the idea of young leadership in the insurance industry. And so we have a number of Ohio Mutual folks here tonight, and we want to thank them for their willingness to support this event. Appreciate it. Just as important is FRST, who is sponsoring our raffle, our primary source of making money on this event for Parkinson's. And so we'd like to thank Ken Pate. Ken is right here. Sorry. No, we appreciate the support. And also to our table sponsors, because that was a big way we could pay for this event as well. So we'd like to thank Travelers Insurance, Chubb, Britton Gallagher, Fidelity Group, and Highland for your support. That was very helpful. And Zing. That's me. And I guess in terms of the amount of work it took to get this event done, I would be remiss if I didn't thank the members of the committee. So if you would mind just standing up for a second when I announce your names so people know who you are. Mindy Clark from the Fidelity Group, invaluable in event planning. Jerry Thomas, who could not be here, but his cousin Kurt is here. Kurt. Very helpful. Megan Ewing from Highland. Appreciate it. She's also in charge of the raffle, so make sure you find her. And Lindsay Fronapple, who couldn't be here tonight, but she was very helpful as well. And of course, Chris McDee back on the camera. So appreciate it. For many of you, this might be the first time at an ELI event, so I just want to take 2 seconds to talk about what ELI is. We are the emerging leaders of insurance, and this is the young professionals in the insurance industry. So we find people come to the events as agents, as company folks, as vendors, on all sides of the business. We're tending to aggregate. No matter who you are, we're finding you at our events. And so our primary goal is to bring people together to network, to do some non-CE education like you get tonight. IBNO is a renowned provider of CE. ELI's goal is to provide things that will make you a better agent, a better service to the clients that you work with, and a more value to the companies that you work for. And so when we get together, that's our goal, is to make sure you walk away a little bit better than when you came. Also, community involvement, like tonight. This is a big night for us. We're trying to raise a couple $1,000 for Parkinson's, and you'll learn more why that's an important issue for us tonight as we go along. And we also sponsor once a month. We do a fundraiser. We do work at the Cleveland Food Bank. So the third Thursday of every month, we get together. We go down to the Cleveland Food Bank and we work at the warehouse, which supplies all the outlying communities with the hunger centers and food centers in the outlying communities. So if you'd like to be involved with that, it's well worth your time. We not only do a good thing for the community, but it's a lot of fun too. So, and if you get a chance to pack bags of flour, you'll know what we're talking about. So tonight we have a speaker on a topic that I think matters to all of us, which is sales. None of us would be here if we weren't selling. In some form, shape, or form, we all support the sales process. And so we have a speaker, Bob Preston. I won't go into details because he asked me not to talk a lot about all the bio stuff, and frankly I hate when people get up there and they read about what committees they were on and all that stuff. That's not who Bob is. What I can tell you after seeing Bob speak is he's a guy who did it. He's not a consultant. He's not some person that comes in and tells you what to do, having done it, never done it yourself. He's got the career numbers and production to prove it. So when he talks about sales, it's someone who's actually done it over his career. And so I'll introduce to you Bob Preston.
Is this working back there? No problem. Thank you. Back to the cheap seats. You always count on the cheap seats. Don? Speaker? Why am I up here? You can hear it? Thank you. So why am I up here? Today, I honestly have never gone through this exercise. I took my best guess on the number of new business appointments I've been on. I specialize in commercial lines as a Freudian slip. Commercial lines, and we had a pretty successful run. My best guess is I've been on 10,500 new business first appointments over my career. That included the training I did for new producers once we got to the position of hiring them. And do I have all the answers for you? No. But I'm up here as the person who probably made the mistake And I think part of the reason for my success is that I didn't make the same mistake twice. Give you a little bit of background. I went into the business in March of 1979, fresh out of the Navy, into a 4-person agency. My training period was exactly 4 days. Excuse me. My training period was exactly 4 days. I was given a homeowner's policy, an auto policy, and a yacht policy. It said, study them. If you have any questions, ask. Make sure you don't have any questions. But what I learned along the way is not to make the same mistake twice. And to put it in perspective, my brother and I took over an agency, just over $1 million of sales in 1982, and when we sold it in 2007, it was about $50 million. Our EBITDA was about 2.5 times the national average, and we had a very, very, very good ride. So this is my story about the ride. This is not my dream car, and I won't embarrass the person in the room, but this has a lot to do with what motivated me and what helped me produce the numbers I did. This is a Porsche 911 Targa
4S.
Targa 4S. And coincidentally, when I was about 25 years old, which would have been 1983, my goal was to have the Jaguar XJS when I was 30. Unfortunately, Jaguar kind of went down the tubes in terms of quality, but when I turned 30, I bought myself a red BMW. So this is a lot about goal setting and how I did it. And I think what a lot of agents are hoping to see and want to see is they want to see the perfect marketing environment where they have a temporary monopoly, they have unlimited prospects who are ready to sign a broker record letter, but they're not willing to ride the changes. I don't care if it's a hard market or a soft market. I don't care if it's a tough class or an easy class. I approach the business the same way. I adapted. I'm big into boating now. And that's my boat somewhere in the Gulf of Maine. And yeah, I'd like to navigate on a nice sunny day, but that doesn't happen. You can't rely on it. And marketing insurance is the same way. You have to be able to roll with the punches, get beat up 101 times, and pick yourself off the mat the 102nd time. So what I'm going to go over with you tonight is stop being used by prospects. You can't get enough referrals. You hate making cold calls. I've not made a cold call in 20 years. Poor closing ratio, and I'll tell you what the single most important question is to ask any prospect. When you can't ask a prospect or your client this question, you're in the wrong side of the business. Because I guarantee you the prospect is asking themselves that question. The number one handicap of producers are themselves. They're not willing to apply themselves in a consistent fashion. And as soon as somebody says no, they give up. Where I see it is no is the first 2 letters in not yet. I'm not ready, Bob. I'm convinced that the real competition for all of you and for me is 4 out of 100 agents. Because 80% of your competition, and none of you agree, is lazy. They're not willing to apply themselves, at least at your level. And of the remaining 20 agents, 80% of those are incompetent. And by that I mean knowing the insurance inside out and backwards. That was the difference on how I produced $26 million of revenue in my career. If somebody was buying insurance based on premium, I was out the door real quick. I went looking for a Vince Lombardi quote and found a whole ton of them. So there's a scattered here, more as a motivational thing. But when you think about it, he was a genius. You can't be on a winning side part of the time. You've got to strive for perfection all the time. And anybody know this guy? His nickname is the Great One. I would like to live with him.
Yeah.
Wayne Gretzky. I don't know how many records he has, but when he was on the Edmonton team, he was dead last in strength training, He was dead last in speed, and he was middle of the road in puck or stick handling. But he was top of the league in so many, basically permanent records. But what did he say? I don't go to where the puck is, I go to where it's going to be. And that's another thing I want to talk to about you tonight. I see a lot of big changes in the industry, and they're treating it more and more like a commodity. So we're going to talk about how to avoid being treated as a commodity. And if somebody's just trying to sell to the lowest premium, here's my response. Chris, I know premium is important to you, and Chris says, yup, lowest premium's going to get it. Well, I tell you what, whatever the best premium you get is, I'll beat it by 5%, and I get to add just one word to all your contracts, one single word. And they'll say what, excluded? No. I'll beat the lowest premium by 5%, I add one word, but you can't bring an E&O claim against me. And the word is and, as opposed to or. So this event has to happen, and this event has to happen in order for coverage to apply, is what you're trying to tell them. Because we picked up so many accounts, 6 months later, 18 months later, when they had an uninsured claim. And I begin my strategy of who I'm going to prospect with by do what you know and know what you do. I've talked to a number of people here that do health insurance and life insurance. I'm licensed to do both. I'm the last person you want to buy it from. I concentrated in 5 classes of business, and every one of them had hair on it. But I couldn't get to that level without education. And it's education, it's education. I didn't sell insurance. I made the prospect want to fire his agent. And that's where you need to get. And it includes networking through ELI, or in my case, in Rhode Island, would be IRE. Use everything you have to your advantage to find out who is the hot environmental guy in town, if they're a wholesaler. So I became recognized as an expert in my classes of business. And that was emergency services. We insured 650 fire departments in New England, and just half of the fire departments in New England. We insured long-haul truckers, especially ones with environmental impairment exposures. We insured yacht builders. We insured the National Tooling Machining Association, which is the super high-precision metal workers. We insured precious metal jewelry manufacturers. But you're thinking, well, that's in Rhode Island, it's different here. Find out what's important here. What are the big classes in Ohio? And don't try and tell me what bad economy Ohio has, because Ohio and Rhode Island have the dubious distinction for the last 20 years of running dead last. We just like trade places. So again, just adapt and work with what you got, not wait for the perfect environment, because you're always going to have an excuse. So of those 5 classes I mentioned, we became recognized as the experts. That takes time, so you've got to be consistent. We would go to the Oil Heat Institute meetings, or we go to the National Tooling Machining Association meetings, and they see you over and over again. This takes time. Don't be afraid to walk into a prospect's office, have him tell you that he's with his brother-in-law or his golf partner. Learn something from that, thank them for the time, and give them a quid pro quo. Here's what I'd like to give you in exchange for 20 minutes you extended to me. And you do it in honest fashion, with no hidden agenda, and you say, have you looked at this workers' comp market? You might want to have your agent talk to you about that. Have you seen this change in legislation? I give them a quid pro quo. And the phone rings a year and a half later when they've had a problem. But it's all about following up. Know their lingo. Do not use any industry lingo when you're talking to a prospect. You don't want to use CGL or BII or GL or BI. Use words they understand, because if you don't, they feel stupid. But use their language as it applies. If I'm selling insurance to a yacht builder, I'm talking his talk, stems and sterns and booms and boom bangs. Here's an example of what I mean. The #1 yacht builder in America, for the highest quality you can buy, is in Maine, for Brooklyn Yacht. Their prices start about $5 million. They're not building massive boats. They're building the finest quality, the finest craftsmanship money will buy. They were with their agent for 30 years. I was 260 miles down the road. Their agent was in the same town. The kids played baseball together. I went in there on a referral. I'll get to how I got that referral in a minute. In the first meeting, the controller did not want to give me the time of day. He only sat down with me reluctantly because the owner told me he had to give me 20 minutes. Basically, the guy hated me. I was a flat man. That's what we call it. Over the course of the next 4 weeks, I tore his policies apart. I had conversations with him about what he wanted to protect, and that was himself. And I went out to see him a second time. It was the middle of February. The snow banks were higher than my truck. And I said, what's most important to you? He says, protecting Bruce, the owner of the company, and protecting what we built. I said, is protecting yourself also equally important? He said, yeah, of course. I said, you have that F-150 out in the parking lot. He said, yep, that's mine. I said, you ever throw the keys to a captain, visiting captain, let him borrow your truck? He said, of course we do. You know that. I said, what do you think is going to happen when that visiting captain has a beer? They do have beers once in a while, right? Yeah. This is the middle of nowhere, so the nearest bar is 5 miles down the road. He said, yeah, they're going to, of course they have a beer or two. I said, so he's not drunk, but he's impaired. He's involved in an accident. And then I showed him his auto policy, and his GL had no non-owned auto liability. Right from his own policy, I highlighted it for him. And I explained it to him in English real slow. And I said, what do you think is going to happen when that guy's involved in an accident? It's your truck. There's no non-owned auto liability on the corporate policy. And the guy is impaired. And I didn't talk. I didn't say a word. And it went about 2 minutes. Imagine going 2 minutes now without talking. He finally says, I'm blank. And I didn't say a word. He repeated it. He says, I'm fill in the blank again. And all I said was, yep. And he said, SOB. He said, what do I got to do to fix this? I said, you appoint me as your risk manager today, it'll be fixed by tonight. He gave me a broker of record letter. It's not what's important to me. Non-owned auto was real small on the totem pole for that risk. There was a lot of other bigger problems. But I had to get by the CFO. And the CFO is when I talk to the owner into signing a BOR for me. And by the way, if you ever get a broker record, and that's the only way almost all my production came from broker records, if you ever get a broker record, as soon as they hand it to you, hand it back. And you say, Courtney, I want you to understand what broker record letter does. It fires the agent. You've summarily dismissed him. I'm your new agent 10 days from now. If you have any intention of rescinding this, tell me now, I'll give it back to you. Because if you don't, or if you do rescind it, it makes me look bad, it makes you look bad. So if you ever get a broker record letter, give it back and ask for it again, earn it. That's critical. So getting back to what I wrote, I did not do bakeries, I did not do video stores. The insurance company reps in here, and I know there's a lot of you here. If you came in to me and said, we want all the electrical wholesalers, I would go the opposite direction, because I know you're going to the next guy and asking for the same thing. I made sure I differentiated myself. I didn't want to be competing against the other 5 agencies in town for electrical wholesalers. There's 160 agencies in Rhode Island. I basically competed against 3 or 4 of them. So when everybody zigs and wants to take on apartment houses or condos, I go the opposite direction and find another class. And I don't want to be treated as a generalist, especially in this day and age, because people are treating it like a commodity more and more. Just give me your best price, Bob. I have 21 questions I ask every prospect, or I have for every prospect. By the time I get to the 7th or 8th, I know which way I'm going. And as a member of ELI, that'll be made available to you. I'll leave it with Seth. See him. There's not one question on the 21 questions that asks about premium. I don't care how many trucks they have. I don't care how many what's their property values. I don't care what the sales are. I do ask employee count, because that just gives me an idea of about the size and range. But I sought out what my underwriters wanted that no one else wanted. And then I became an expert in that class. So all the young agents here, what's the best advice I can give you? Is education, education, education. Whether it's CRC, ARM, CPCU, or specialty classes. You get to sales schools, whether it be John Wepler at Marshberry or Roger Sickens. My method of selling evolved constantly, and it did up till the day I retired. Towards the end, I was asking for broker record. I wanted to be appointed the risk manager, in-house risk manager. So seek out what your underwriters like, create a partnership that involves trust. I saw the Hartford around here somewhere. Hartford. An inland marine underwriter at the Hartford in Connecticut. He still works there. I won't mention his name. Now he's down south in Georgia, or Charleston. He and I just hit it off big time. And he wrote the largest jewelry manufacturer of precious metal chain in the world for me. And we figured, well, that was pretty easy. And we just went cleaning house on the best precious metal jewelry companies in the Northeast. That precious metal jewelry company guy called me up. I insured him for about 15 years. Called me up one day and read me the Riot Act. Told me everything on the book and said, I've been ripping them off for years because somebody just came in and blew me away by 30%. I said, it can't happen. Yes, you did. Rotten SOB, hang up the phone. I called him every 3 or 4 months. He never took my call until 18 months later. He answered the phone when I called. And he said, Bob, I need you here. I need you here today. The new agent wrote the insurance perfectly well. All the numbers were right. Except, you know that little exclusion in the unendorsed CPP policy that says we cover precious metals except for theft? He had $18 million in precious metals in the building. And an unendorsed CPP policy says we cover gold, bullion, jewelry, stones, precious and semi-precious stones, precious and semi-precious metals, except for the peril of theft. We were appointed the agent that day. He got a summary judgment in his favor on an E&O claim. Right from the get-go, here's one of the most important questions you're going to ask. Here's 3 of them. What is most important to you on your insurance program? Don't go in there and start talking and blabbing. You're not going to learn anything when you're talking. When I go into a new business appointment, I'm talking 20% of the time or less. So I'll say, what's most important to you in your program? What keeps you awake at night? If you could fix one thing, what would it be? What is your biggest risk as you proceed? I'm asking to be an insurance expert. That's my job. What do you see as it? What one thing would you fix in your insurance program if you could? That's the 21 questions Seth is going to have. The last one, the 4th one, the most important one, you'll get in a minute. So you want to get in their head. If they say premium is full stop for me, you're just looking to get the cheapest price. Because you know somebody's going to beat you by 5 or 10% for no other reason than giving the word excluding theft on a policy. So I want him to say, and they've said everything from, once I point out a couple of mistakes, Bob, you said enough, we're good to go, to, well, I don't ever see me firing my agent because they're my brother-in-law. Or what's really important to me is the way the claim was handled. It took 6 months to settle it, and I never heard from the agent once. Or we hear that you have a good pollution liability contract for service operations for heating contractors. Get into their head. What is important to them? You can't ask it once. You've got to ask it 5 different ways. And it's, again, all in this questionnaire. And at the risk of being redundant, it's what's most important to you on your insurance program? If you could pick one thing other than premium, what would you want to see fixed? and then you deliver that. You take notes detailed in quotes. Whatever they say, you write like mad. And then you feed it back to them verbatim. It says, I don't do quotes with the prospect, doesn't see reason other than better premium, I walk away. So what did I do with this boat builder in Maine? The proposal was 1 page. And one of the things on the page was, I want to protect Bruce, I want to protect the boss, I want to protect the company, and my interest in the company. So that's what I start with when I deliver what they think is going to be a proposal and a cheaper premium which they're going to give to their broker. So I said to him, Mike, you want to protect your assets, you want to protect Bruce, you want to protect the company, you have a fractional ownership. You probably want to protect your house, right? Well, read this non-owned auto exclusion. And that was the whole proposal. We were done after that. Find out what's important to them. It doesn't matter one iota of what's important to you. But unless you can tear a policy apart by being very, very well educated, you're not going to be able to do that. My matching advice. There was some questions put around here earlier. There is no matching advice. If I had it, I'd probably still, or I'd probably be doing something else. We have Vince Lombardi. What was my career was like a rocket. Only took 30 years, 60 hours a week. But I was consistent in the application of how I solicited the insurance. And here's one. I drive wedges very carefully. So if I'm soliciting Jake's Insurance, Jake's the incumbent agent, so I switch to a fee-based income for most of my clients. I never once had anybody challenge it, other than to say, quite often, is that what you're getting? When I ask for a 15% fee. So imagine that on a $100,000, $20,000, $300,000 excess lines policy, it's going to pay you 7 or 8%. You just doubled your income. Went right to the bottom line. We were doing full disclosure on fee long before it became vogue. And we had them sign off on it, acknowledging it. And again, I'll say it again, no one ever challenged it. And I was getting probably 3 or 4 more points than my competition on the book of business that I handled. I worked on big stuff where typically the alphabet houses would charge 8, 9, or 10%. I was getting 12, 15, 16% fee on a lot of those accounts. My book of business, the day I sold the agency, my personal book of business was just 88 accounts, $1.4 million of fee. Contingent commissions were on top of that, and by the way, we disclosed those way before that was over. Always look for exploit opportunities. I went into the business in 1979, the height of a major recession. Double-digit unemployment, double-digit inflation, double-digit crime rate. The effective unemployment in Rhode Island was about 20%. I did not know a thing about insurance. I was fresh out of the Navy. But I knew boats. I used to sail boats. So in 1981, we had a thing called Hurricane Gloria. And I had a mess on my hands. And realized it might be time to not concentrate on one class of business. So I thought to myself, how am I going to break into commercial lines? It's simple. Now think about this. You got to think way outside the box. I had 1,200 boat apps. I went through every one. Back then we had real file cabinets and real files. I had 1,200 apps. And on the application, I had the guy's name, the woman's name, and their job description, and title, and who was employed by. So every single one that said CFO or owner of XYZ jewelry manufacturing, I picked up the phone and called them. I said, we handle your boat. That might have been the only thing I handled, because we didn't believe in rounding out accounts back then. Remember I said my training period was 4 days? So I said to them, how do we do on your boat claim? Oh, you did a great job. Can I come out and talk to you about your business insurance? Yeah, sure, come on out. I knew nothing about business insurance. But that's just thinking outside the box. Wherever you are right now, today, whatever works for you today, I guarantee you it will be ineffective or marginally effective 5 years from now, so you have to keep reinventing yourself. So in 1979, I was doing boats. In 1981, I went into manufacturing. Didn't matter what they made, or if they were bakery, I would have done that too. I had to eat. In 1985, on November 14th, 1985, Century Insurance decided to get out of the metalworking business overnight and issued a legal notice of cancellation to every single client they had, non-renewed, or cancellation 45 days on December 31st. Guess how many agents were out there soliciting their insurance? I called somebody and said, I begged them, can I get your National Towing Machine Association list for Rhode Island, Mass? They gave it to me. In 45 days, I did 25 proposals on an accountant or a class of business I never heard of before, and I wrote 18 of them in one day. My whole year goal was made on January 2nd. 18 machine shops. That program fizzled out over the years because manufacturing Rhode Island doesn't exist any longer. So in 1997, the chance to buy was best described as an MGA or a wholesaler for emergency services, which is fire and ambulance, fire and rescue. The agency was going down the tubes. At the same time, my younger brother was getting out of the special forces. And we thought, Army Sergeant, Fire Chief, Army Sergeant, Fire Chief, that might work. We built out 650 fire departments we insured, and then it branched into nonprofits, because it was effectively the same kind of board. That agency just blew the numbers away. The revenue per employee, believe it or not, began with a 3. They sold one product, one class of business, with 5 full-time people, 650 fire departments. That went real strong until somebody came and made us an offer we couldn't refuse 2 years ago. The agency was not for sale, it was different than my other agency. And thought they moved the decimal point 1 too many spots to the right, but they hadn't. Thought they moved the decimal point 1 too many spots to the right, but they hadn't. So we're still proud to have. 2002, one of the big carriers that was insuring what was left of the jewelry manufacturing business in Rhode Island decided to get out, so I called every single one of them on my list after I got a referral. And I'll talk about that in a minute. And we picked up a ton of jewelry manufacturing in 1 year. The only point of this, in 2010, I went back to where I started, Marine, except not doing boats, but insuring builders. The only point of this is constantly looking for opportunities and you exploit them in a professional manner. That's my favorite quote of all time. Nothing takes place with persistence. That is what I can best stress to the young people in the crowd. Persistence and determination alone are limited. You're going to be able to get beat up 101 times and get off the mat 102nd time. And how many people have asked their client after they've renewed it the second or third year, why did you pick me 3 years ago? Anybody ask that question? I ask that question of every single client I have. Why do you do business with me? Why did you pick me 3 years ago? If you don't know the answer to that question, how do you leverage that information to sell the next account? To the account managers in the office, I had the world's best staff. They made me look good. That's the reason for my success in a nutshell. They were paid in the top quartile in the industry. My goal on every single account was to have the principal say, Bob, we don't need you, we've got Judy. And I'd be, yes, perfect answer. Because now I didn't have to stay in the office and field calls. They were calling Judy, Susan, and the other 43 people who worked in my office. I was smart enough to hire very smart people and get the heck out of their way. We had a 96% retention ratio on commercial lines, except on emergency services hovered between 98 and 99. I had two full-time people, two full-time account managers that did nothing but underwrite and place my new business, nothing else. I kept them busy. And one was called Connacht the Magnificent. She knows more about insurance than I will ever know. I would go in for the first meeting and do the 21 questions. Go in for the second meeting, basically make sure that the 21 questions hadn't changed. Bring her in for the third meeting, wind her up, and let her go. And what invariably would happen is the client would look at me and say, "That's pretty good stuff, Bob. What should I do?" I listen to Judy. She and I, for the last 5 years I was in production, we had a close ratio of 84%. And the vast majority of it was on broker records. And the other one, she's known as the queen. She keeps everything going. So these women were the best of the best. To the account managers in the room who want to know how they can be of value to the agency, it is just that. Provide or deliver a service or a level of service or education that is top-notch, that's the best that you can be. And Judy was the most technically proficient person I have ever met, and her ability to practically apply insurance to a policy. She didn't just know the policy, she knew how the practical application of it. I added this up tonight. One boat application. I had dinner with the client last night. He's still a client. He's been a client for, our best guess is about 28 years. In 28 years, he's paid me $2,750,000 a fee. The commission now, or the fee now, is $175,000 a year. But I kind of extrapolated backwards from that. One boat application, the total premium was under $200 in 1981 or so. He's never gone out to market in all those years. When he calls, the office jumps through hoops. It's a national account. But we provide him with service greater than he expects or anticipates. And that's what I want to talk about in a minute. That started with a boat application. That's one of the people that I picked up the phone and called him after he had a total loss on his $12,000 boat. How do you know the loss? I talk to you about your insurance. It was a small wood treating company then. Now, you see the composite decking at Lowe's and Home Depot? Every bit of it came out of his plan. Think you ever have a bad day? This is the Maltese Falcon, big boat. It's the biggest sailboat in the world, privately owned. And the guy in the little 41-foot Columbia thought he had the right of way. He survived and was settled out of court. The Maltese Falcon was found to be in the right. The other guy was the burden vessel. He was the one supposed to dodge the super tank up here. But my point is, how does that apply to insurance? Don't assume anything. The captain of the Maltese Falcon would probably sit there saying, boy, you got anybody who could attack pretty quick. Insurance is the same way. Assume nothing. This is an undoctored photo. It was taken by a friend of mine. This happened at the Classic Yacht Regatta in Jamestown in 2009, I think. This big boat ran over the top of the little boat. It sank in 5 seconds. It was a classic New York 40, and I saw that same boat yesterday, sailing perfectly under sail. Number 9 did not get his feet wet, even though the boat sank in 5 seconds. This boat plowed right over the top of it, split the New York 40 in half. He grabbed a hold of these shrouds, through adrenaline, pulled himself up, and this is all recorded on still film. Again, assume nothing. You know the little boat you had the right of way? The big boat was found guilty in court 2 years later. Big settlement. Basically, rich guys suing rich guys. This boat was about 100 years old. That was about 80 years old, and they're just toys to them. But it was all in its pride and glory yesterday. What do many agents, account managers fail to do with a prospect or a client? And this is why we kept this account happy for 30 years and received $2.25 million of fees. If you learn only one thing tonight, you have to exceed clients' and prospects' expectations. It's not what you think is important, it's what they think is important. It's not where you put the bar on your staff, it's where they put the bar. Always, always, always exceed expectations, and I drill into my staff, under promise and over deliver. Here's an example, another client that never has gone out to market. He called me up one day and said, in a panic, he said, Bob, I really messed up. I'm buying this other small company. I forgot to do my due diligence on the insurance. I need some data and I need it fast. When can you have it? Make a long story short, I told him 3 days. He said, you can have it faster than that? I said, how about 2 days? He said, okay, I can live with that. I put it in his mailbox that night. Right at 9 or 10 o'clock, I called him on his home phone. I said, Ken, go open your mailbox. Everything you want is in there. He's never gone out to market. That's what you have to do with your clients if you want to keep them. That's how you get treated not like a commodity. We're all busy. When I was working, I put 1,800 minutes a month on my business cell phone. That's 30 hours. And it wasn't with any agenda. I carried my list of 88 clients around with me. I was scanning at a stop sign, whoever, and I called, I haven't called Kevin. Hey Kevin, how you doing? Just called to see how things were going. Is there anything in your insurance life or the insurance in your business that you have a question on? I don't have anything on my agenda, just called to see how you're doing, make sure we're performing above your level of expectations. If you don't do that, that's how I get in the door. And they say, Kevin, has Bob been meeting your level of expectations? Well, no. I get this problem on my daughter's car. The best thing I ever did for client loyalty was what I call hurricane calls. Again, 88 clients. Every time I thought one of them might have a claim, I called every one of them. John, how you doing? Bob, finally got through to you. The hurricane's passed. Are you okay? Is your property okay? So she really called me to see if I got a claim? Yeah. Are you okay? Your wife okay? Kids are away to school still? Is your building okay? Yeah. What do I have the next day? 88 new producers. Because these guys are calling all their friends, and I heard them openly brag. Hey, your agent called you to ask if you wanted to put in a claim from the hurricane? And I did it in the car. It didn't take me any more time. That was one of the 1,800 minutes that I spent on the phone every month. They still talk about it to this day, and I've been retired for 3 or 4 years. You do carry your client list with you, right? If you don't, how are you staying in touch with them? Blow them away with attention. I have one client who was $1 million premium account, about $120,000 commission or fee. Whenever anything was going on in the account, whether it's a renewal coming up or him having a big claim, it was an ambulance service, I called him every single Friday afternoon for what we call Friday at the Follies. An agent came in there and was 30% lower than me, and he didn't move the account. Because he said, Bob, it's killing me to spend all this extra money, but I missed the Friday afternoon phone calls. I had one client, I called her up to wish her happy birthday. The first time I did it, she said, no, really, why are you calling? I said, I'm calling because it's your birthday. It was like 9 a.m. She started crying. She said, you're the first person to wish me happy birthday. She's never going out to market, never. Account managers, this applies to you too. Because we're just going to get back to the producer and owner that, hey, Mary Jane called to wish me happy birthday, and you guys are the world's best agency, and we love you guys. That's how you get a 96% retention rate. What's the retention rate for commercial lines these days? Probably still 88, 90? Yeah. Think of the difference there. And it's free, it's cheap. All you have to do is pick up the phone. This isn't rocket science. Blow them away with attention. Here's a question I ask every single client, every single year. I won't say twice, but at least once. Ready? This is to clients. What would it take for you to consider leaving the Preston agency? If another agent is in here for you. And is there an agent you're talking to? What would it take? What would they have to show you to give you pause or even a second thought about moving your account? If you can't answer that question, what's your target? You don't have a target. You're shooting blind. You got to ask that question. The reason most people won't do it, they're afraid of the answer. That's the question you got to ask every client. You're going to have a lot of confidence to do it. But it's a lot easier than getting the phone call the next day and saying, hey, I'm moving to John. He came in with a yellow policy folder, and I like yellow better than blue. That was what was important to him. I don't care what your ex date is. And I don't give a hoot about the expiration date. We quoted or proposed off ex date all the time. And if you're quoting against my accounts, you better be there 120 days before the renewal, because by 60 days minimum, or minimum out, I've already locked it up. And I start my conversation 120 days out. What do we need to do to square away the renewal right now? And I didn't call it renewal. I didn't call it policy renewal. I said it's a contract renewal, because that way they think in legal terms. So when you call 45 days out to see if you can give us a quote, we're already done, put it to bed, findings have been issued, so on and so forth. But I loved it when you guys went out and delivered the policies, or delivered the proposals a week before the renewal, delivered the policies a month later, and I went out a week later. Because how do you now defend a proposal on policies that you issued with the 12 mistakes I just laid out? I'm not that bright. I don't have the answer to that question. But here's where it began. What is the one thing you'd like to see me accomplish in a written audit? And ask them to put it in English. I want my autos on a reporting form. I want my buildings and all the value of all the contents put into one number, one blanket number. He doesn't know what it's called, and I just gave it away. But ask him what he wants. The first, second, and third presentations are just like this, is practice, practice, practice. I don't know how many proposals I delivered, but up to the very, very end, and I'm working on my last account right now, it's a national account, I practiced the delivery of the proposal. Practice does not make perfect, only perfect practice makes perfect. And that's my quote. You don't have to be better than everybody, but you got to surprise yourself. You got to push yourself very, very hard. And I do expect more from myself than others think possible. And that'll come around in the circle in one moment. Every single year, I would give away a little bit, but on an average, I would give away 20% of my book every single year. And here's why. The top 2 accounts were almost $300,000 in fees. The next 10 was $608 in fees. And the bottom 30 accounts out of the 88 were ones I had to write for political reasons. Only $44,000 in commission in fees, because a lot of that we got commission. Which ones do you want to work on? How can I add more on the top? You can drive my book higher. When I'm working on 30, you produce 44,000. That's what you want to do. You've got to get out of doing the minutia, doing the junk. I didn't know, I owned the agency with my brother, and I didn't know the vast majority of insurance company reps, or underwriters, or claims people, because I was never in the office. My brother would say, hey, don't you want us to hang around for Hartford to come in, or Chubb to come in? No, because I don't think they had to buy insurance from me. I'm out the door. When they bought my agency, the new sales manager at the parent challenged all his producers to get 3 referrals a week. That was one of the first meetings I ever sat in. I was sitting in the back and I scoffed. And he said, well, Bob, what do you think about that? I said, you want just 3? 3 challenged me to get 50. I brought back 95 in 1 week. 95 referrals in a single week. How did I do it? This is a true story. But I just happened to be seeing one of my biggest clients, and he never gave us referrals, but he was in a great mood. He had just moved to a new home he had built. He had just been awarded Dealer of the Year by his peers, and his boat was just launching to the water. What do you say to him, other than it's lucky being you? How did I get 3 referrals that day? Who services your boat? Who built your house? And who are the dealers in your district that you respect the most? I didn't ask for a referral. Because you say, hey, will you refer me to Joe Ford dealer? No, I hate him. Will you give me, Jack GM? No, you're not getting his either. But if I say, Chris, who are the 4 or 5 dealers that you really respect in your region? You have 20 group. He said, okay, there was 3, it was Monday morning. How did I get the other 95? I happened to be going to Maine to see a boat builder. I knew he was very, very, very active in the Maine Boat Building Association. I brought the book with me. It had 230 names. I said, if you have a couple of minutes, can you just go through the A's and B's and tell me who you know, what you know about them? And give me the good, the bad, and the ugly, because I really respect your opinion. And tell me who I want to insure, but tell me who I don't want to insure also. Are they money problems? Are they jerks? That's just not somebody who are nice people. He said, Bob, I'll take it home with me. I'll go through the whole list. I'll fax it back to you. He gave me like 60 referrals. And I wasn't even in the business of soliciting insurance anymore. I was moving into retirement. So I became the best friend of every producer in the organization because I had these piles of referrals. That's all you got to do. I don't know anything about insuring farms. Wouldn't know where to begin. But you go to Farmer Jones. My question to Farmer Jones is, corn. We don't have cornfields in the land. We have corn plots. I'd say to Farmer Jones, Seth, you are the best at insuring growing corn that I know, but who else is as good as you? Colonel Sanders. Can I get him a call? So you say, well, I respect the guy down this county that's doing soybeans, or this guy who's raising cattle, and this guy was on a committee with me. He rattles off 5 or 6 of them. Do you mind if I call him? You just say, you and I are friends, and I handle your insurance. I've never had anybody tell me no. So there's 4 more referrals. I did 95 in 1 week working part-time, breaking 6. If you don't like making cold calls, then don't. I haven't made a cold call in 20 years. I don't solicit prospects. I solicit referrals, or what I call reverse referrals. That's where I hand somebody a list of my elephants. Here's the 20 accounts I would give my IT to write. And I say to them, who on the list do you know, and what do you know about them? And they would just spew stuff to them. If somebody came to me and said, hey, Bob, off the top of your head, give me 6 boat builders that we should call. My brain doesn't work that way. But if you put a list of 200 in front of me, I'll say, yep, good, bad, ugly, and you want to tell them, I really respect your opinion. So give me the good, the bad, and the ugly on them, and I'll stay away from the bad and the ugly. And the good ones, just tell me what you can about them. And they just spew information. I don't know how many thousands of leads I had when I called it a day, but that's why I haven't made a cold call in 20 years. You have a list of elephants, right? How do you solicit? How do you get in the door of your top 20 prospects? You don't keep a list with you. It has to be in writing. It has to be laminated. You have to have it with you all the time, and you don't give it to an insured right after you had a bad claim, but right after you're surprised with the dividend checks. I always delivered my dividend checks unannounced. That's the only time I showed up at my client's office unannounced. So I delivered a dividend check and I'd say, hey John, you go through this list for me. I know you saw it in the past, but you haven't seen it in a couple of years. And it's a new list of my top prospects. Who do you know on the list? What do you know about them? You give me the good and the bad and the ugly because I really respect your opinion. And then I have 88 clients. I had 88 people prospecting for me. In the last 5 years of business, I worked part-time. My close ratio was 82% over those 5 years, and this is all documented. My new production averaged about 150,000 of revenue per year, new. This is on top of my sales manager job in handling the book of business that I handle, which was 1.4 million of revenue. In 2010, I just traded down a little bit of business, about $100,000. So when I retired on December 31st, 2010, I had $1,230,000 fee in just the book I controlled. I didn't count any trade downs that have been done in the past, or all the referrals I walked out there with somebody and went directly to them. It was 100% referral while working part-time. The worst year I had on retention was 93. The EBITDA was through the roof. And that's how I grew an agency from $1 million to $50 million in 30 years. And if you do the math, that's 12.8% compounded per year. All those numbers while working part-time. And why in the heck would I retire at age 48? We're going to take a break here for about 2 minutes. And use the head, use the ladies' room, keep it clean. I spend my time on a boat now. But again, just 2 minutes. But this is going to tell you why I'm here, what I'm trying to promote.
It's 2007. I'm 48 years old, and I was just diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. You would think that would be the end of my world. I'm here to tell you it's not. I'm Bob Preston. I fight Parkinson's disease every day, just as you may be facing the disease. I'm here to tell you that an optimistic attitude has made all the difference in the world to me and helped me fight this disease for the last 6 years. I absolutely positively believe that the mind is the most incredible tool and the biggest asset you have in the fight against Parkinson's. What I'm suggesting to you is to find your passion, whatever it may be. Whether it is children or grandchildren, a hobby, a sport, a vocation, or an avocation. You work within the parameters that you have because of Parkinson's. One of my passions has been for many years is skiing. I've skied many, many mountains, and the best 2 days of skiing in my entire life was this spring, teaching my foster grandchild how to ski. It was the best of the best. I call it an 11 out of 10. Life doesn't get better than that. I am not going to let Parkinson's dictate to me what I can and can't do. I'm going to continue to adapt so I can keep enjoying the things that I love. My wife and I are planning a 9,000-mile journey beginning this fall, and it's all to spread awareness for Parkinson's. It's to raise money for Parkinson's research and patient support, and again, it's to demonstrate in my words and actions, walking the walk, the power of a positive outlook and an optimistic viewpoint in fighting any kind of chronic illness. This message is being brought to you on behalf of the American Parkinson's Disease Association and the Rhode Island chapter of the APDA. Their support with patient care, research, and patient care services has been a tremendous help to me. I strongly suggest you reach out to them, and you can find them at www.apdaparkinson.org. Get out there, challenge yourself. You might surprise yourself.
What's having Parkinson's like? Imagine waking up every day with a 5-pound weight on each leg and a 2.5-pound weight on each ankle. You haven't slept in 36 hours. You have a hangover even though you don't drink. That's some of the symptoms. I do not have the shaking syndrome. But I'm not here to ask for your pity. I wouldn't trade places with anybody in the world. And I sincerely mean that. I did not accept nor solicit a fee for coming out and talk to you. I hope what we tried to relay is of benefit to you. And I greatly appreciate the monies you've helped me raise tonight. When I was diagnosed with Parkinson's, I was 46. And it was a tough shot. But I found out that the local chapter was going broke. They were closing their doors, they had no money. So I set out to raise $10,000. I sent out a letter to clients and said, hey, I've helped you out along, you can donate some money to Parkinson's. And they did. We raised $10,000 in about 3 weeks. And then my assistant, the Queen, berated me and said, "You wuss, you gotta be kidding me." Last week, we requested $200,000 that I raised for Parkinson support. Anything you can do would be greatly appreciated. That's the quote I was looking for. Everybody gets knocked down, but it's getting back up. I guarantee you, I will not fail in my quest to be cured. Failure is not only not an option, it doesn't even exist in my vocabulary. I don't even recognize the word. Take that with you when you leave tonight. And we're now producing insurance. Shoot for the stars. You might surprise yourself. Thank you very, very much for having me. Seth's, I'll tell them. The Bushes was Seth's. We had this delivered 4 weeks ago. That was from selling insurance, one policy at a time. It was my goal to have a boat that I could travel anywhere with. Last year, the other boats you saw in the picture, the same color. I was on, they were smaller. This one, length overall, from stem to stern, is about 54 feet. And we're going to the Turks and Caicos. I got Parkinson's. If I can go to the Turks and Caicos, you can get anything you want. Like selling insurance, you're going to want it bad enough. So Chris or Josh, who asked me the question, what fuels my passion? You're going to want it bad enough. That will get me to the Turks, and I have no doubt I will be cured. The single most important question you can ask a prospect for those who decided to hang around. Mr. Prospect, what do I need to do? What do I need to show you to convince you to fire your present agent? You can't ask that question, you're on the wrong side of the business, because I guarantee you they're asking themselves that question the moment after you walk out the door having delivered your proposal. That is a culmination of 30 years and 10,000 new business meetings, that one question. Because that's going to tell you whether you're swinging at air or you have a chance to make a home run. If you don't know the answer to that question, what's your target? That's what you're saved for. What do I need to do to convince you to fire your present agent? And you're going to use the word fire. That's when his eyes really set back, or she sits back in her chair and says, what do you mean I got to fire my agent? If you haven't asked that question, that's the question and the answer they've given themselves the moment you walk out the door, having delivered the proposal, spend 40 hours of your time, another 40 or 50 hours of your staff's time delivering a proposal that goes nowhere. That's how you get an 80% close ratio. Our goal was leaving in July, going up the Hudson River, across the Erie Canal, but the Erie Canal was closed. So like insurance, we adapt. So we came back down, that was the old boat. We're right here on Rhode Island. The new boat, there's where we're heading this winter. We go across Florida, actually. And Turks and Caicos are way down here. There's Cuba. So you go to Cuba and you keep going. When we're done, it'll be 9,000 miles. We'll cross the Bermuda Triangle 3 times. And that's it. I never would have dreamt I could have done this 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And actually, I asked my neurologist when I was first diagnosed, which was 7 years ago, or 8 years ago, 7.5 years ago. I asked him then, when he first diagnosed me, where was I going to be in 5 years? He said, in 5 years, you'll either be in a wheelchair or on a cane. I said, neither one of those is good for me. I want another option. So when I went out to buy my last boat 3 years ago, I then asked him, where am I going to be in 5 years? He said, Bob, we've already gone through this. When I went out to buy this boat, which we had built, it's did it last October. Now he says, Bob, I'm not going to answer that question. You're going to be wherever you want to be. And as agents, that's my message to you. You can be wherever you want to be. You got to stay focused, educated, and have a passion for it. I have a passion for what I did. I absolutely loved what I did. The hardest thing I ever did in my business career, by far, was signing a P&S agreement in October of 2007. It was like putting your kid up for adoption. Because it wasn't me, it was the 44 employees that worked for me. But I did what I had to do, and I have no regrets. My wife says it saved my life. So as you go off tonight, I ask you to chase your passion, whether it's health, property casualty, what have you, and go for it. And I want you to surprise yourself. Have a great night. Thank you. We have a shirt for Seth. He put a lot of work into this, as did a lot of other people. On the front it says Family Ties 3. This is the third boat by that name. Incidentally, we named boats Family Ties long before I learned I had Parkinson's, so there's no relation to Michael J. Fox. But that's how you need to live life. Optimism can take you anywhere. There you go. Seth.
Thank you.
Any questions at all?
We got some for you. The night raised $2,500. So
Thank you very, very much.
that's for you. What Bob didn't tell you is Parkinson's is what made you ultimately sell your agency. So it brought a lot of hard issues to the front you had to face, and the sales agency was really a result of this disease, and so that's why he's so passionate about it. And you mentioned the last account you're working on before you officially retire after his 5-year contract runs out. Maybe you mentioned that.
The last account I worked on was, or I'm currently working on, is the national account of the American Parkinson's Disease Association. And they called me in to review the insurance, and I did exactly what I just described to you. The account is the worst design program I've ever seen. It was a nightmare. It is a nightmare. They have no umbrella. They have no fidelity. They didn't do now. They had no non-owned auto. They got thousands of people running around, volunteers like me. But what I did was exactly what I mentioned. They had a new CEO. I kept feeding her information. I wasn't on the board because I wouldn't join the board, though asked, because I had suspicions about the DNO. And I had a lot at risk. When I looked at the DNO, it was functionally not in effect. It was null and void. And I know Chubb's here in the room, and Chubb stepped up to the plate. Thank you very much, Chubb, for wherever you are. Chubb wrote the DNO now. We got every endorsement we asked for, including government entities, exclusion removed. But that's my last project. Originally, when I approached them, they said, how much was it going to be? And I shot them a lowball number for professional fees. And then I thought, what better way than to give back? And we donated all of our money back to them, so we did it pro bono. Where's Philadelphia? We're waiting for Philadelphia. We got them on the edge to write GL. I'm not trying to put you guys on the spot, but the GL was so bad, and the record keeping was so bad on the special events policy, the underwriter was naturally skeptical. They said, Bob, you got to be kidding me. No, here's the data. So waiting for Philadelphia to finish the quote, which we started in February, and with any luck, I'll have it done by, it has to be done by October 1st, Liz. That's when we start. I mean, the pointing pot south. Any questions at all? I wish you all happy hunting. We were supposed to be in Cleveland in July, but they closed the Erie Canal because of storm damage. So what we did is we kept going straight. We went up to Lake Champlain Canal, up to Canada. The goal was to go to Cleveland and then make the Great Loop. So you know what that means? Next year. This trip down to the church is going to take us 9 months. So we'll get back to Rhode Island about June. Then we'll turn around and go out in July. We come back, we don't abandon our family. We come back about every 4 weeks. There's JetBlue and there's Southwest. So you can usually get anywhere you want in a day. And incidentally, to the women in the room, yes, I'm a licensed captain. My wife is the admiral. We don't travel with an agenda. We go wherever the admiral wants the next day. Anything else? Any questions?
Is there a website that we can get those shirts in?
Yes, you can. If you go to optimismtour.blogspot.com. We have those envelopes.
We have envelopes here. As you walk out, there's envelopes where you can make a contribution. It's got the website on it. If you want to do more, you can do that. And we'll have all the information posted on ELI's website too, so we'll be able to do that by next week.
The blogspot is called optimismtour.blogspot.com, but if you can't remember that, type in Bob Preston, Cure PD. You find my Facebook page. I don't know how all that works, but it's magic.
Yeah.
No, I got some good support team. But what this money goes to is, I've been very fortunate, so a lot of the alternative therapies that I get, like acupuncture or massage therapy, or I work out with a physical therapist in my home 3 times a week. He beats the living crap out of me. But this money, I've developed a fund. There's $50,000 in it now for those that can't afford those alternative therapies to be able to get them. So that's what I'm working at doing now, is providing alternative therapy care for the people that have Parkinson's. So there's 1.6 million Americans that have PDA.
And how many of them aren't diagnosed yet?
Yeah, we were talking about that, especially outside of the U.S., probably tens of millions. There's no cure for the disease. How you see me now is powered by drugs. The drugs simply mask the symptoms. They don't slow down the symptoms or the progression of the disease. But again, I would not trade places with anybody in the world, period. It is so wide. That 9-year-old girl, she's our foster grandchild. That's why. Ready?
As mentioned on the way out, there are envelopes to support Bob's work, so if it's something you want to look at, we'll have all the information up on our website by next week, so you'll be able to tune in and watch Bob. If you'd like to help out, thank you for coming. Our next event is September 26th. It's a social, so it's just a meet up, and the spot is a tree mountain flying monkey. So